Hey guys, Gen 3D Tech here. Today we're checking out the exciting new control pad from Padsmith that everyone's talking about. It's called the Temple of Dreams. As you can see, it's a beautiful looking pad, and I think you might like it. So without further ado, let's get into it. Anyways, I'd first like to start off by thanking Padsmith for providing this pad for my evaluation for this review. I bought the first war several months ago, and I've been enjoying that. It's one of my favorite hybrid pads that I've tested, so I was very excited when I saw that they were coming out with a control pad, and then when I saw this beautiful design, as you can see, it's gorgeous, and it's really hard to tell on camera, but this mouse pad really pops. It's black and white, but the white is almost reflective, and I think it has something to do with the material, because this is a cloth material, but it's different than any other cloth material that I have on any one of my pads. There are a couple pads that I'll go over that have similar characteristics, but as far as how it feels and how it looks exactly, it's a very unique pad, which is very cool in a market that's full of a lot of clones. So if you haven't heard of Padsmith, they've only been around a short time as far as I know. This is their second pad. As I mentioned, the first war pad, which I'll bring out here in just a minute. So Padsmith is, as far as I know, a pretty new company. This is only their second pad. As I mentioned, the first war pad, which I'll bring out here. This is the first war pad. I've had this since the early part of the year, and it's a hybrid type pad. It's kind of a speed pad, I would say, as far as the hybrid surface goes. Now, the one thing that separates this from other hybrid pads is it has a really soft base. It's very squishy. Both pads are very squishy, but this one's definitely squishier than this control pad that we're going to be going over today. And as you can see, the design is very, there's a lot going on. It's very bright, very colorful, and the art, it stands out. This is a very aggressive design, I'd say, and some people are either going to love it or they're probably not going to like it because it might be too much for some people. But for me, I like it. My daughters are a little scared of this pad, so I don't usually bring it out during the day. And one of the things I like about this pad that I went over in my review of it is that while it does have texture, it's not uncomfortable. It still feels nice and comfortable. So it's a very comfortable hybrid pad. Got a lot of speed, and it still maintains some control. And again, it's also very soft, which is, I really like the squish on it. Size wise, both of these pads are the same size. They're both 490 by 420 millimeter, both 4 millimeter thick. The first war pad only comes in this size, and the control pad does have a desk version, which has an expanded design, and that is 1000 by 500 millimeters in size, also 4 millimeters thick. Currently, both of these pads can be had off of their website, padsmith.com, and I believe you can also get the first war at Maxgaming. There may be some other sites that these are available, and as I find them, I'll throw them in the description of the videos. Currently, the first war is on sale for $35. So if you never picked up this pad, I highly recommend it, especially if you like faster hybrid pad. The Temple of Dreams pad in this size is currently $39.99, and the full desk version is just $10 more at $49.99. And if you're watching this video at the time that I'm releasing this pad is almost currently sold out. So if you're thinking about this, I would hop on it right away. I do know that there will be more coming in. So if it is sold out, be patient. It will get restocked, and you can get one down the line if you're watching this video at a later date. Another little side note, there's also going to be different versions of this pad. I think they're going to have 3 different bases for this pad. I believe this current version of it is a soft base, is what he considers it. I think there's going to be an extra soft base and a medium base. but I'm not 100% sure on that. I believe that's correct, but I'm sure there'll be an official announcement of that at some point. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about who this pad might be a good fit for. First of all, even if you're not a gamer and you're just looking for a mouse pad with a really killer design, this is definitely a great option for you. It's a high quality pad and it looks spectacular. So if you like the design and you don't really care about gaming, you just want a nice comfortable mouse pad for your desk, then this might be a good option for you. You also might consider the desk pad, which is a larger version of this, and it has more on the design going on. So if this pad fits into your aesthetics, then yeah, the desk version might be a good option. I do know that there's a lot more limited availability on the desk pads, so you might want to grab one of those sooner than later. Design aside, even if you don't care about how it looks and you're looking for a really awesome, unique control pad, then this definitely might be a pad for you. I have a lot of control pads in my collection, and this is probably my favorite control pad at the moment. The only other control pad that's close for me is the Dornfinger Rod Pad version 2, which I'm going to be filming a review on that right after I finish this. Saturn's also good. There's a bunch of them, but this is definitely in the top 3 control pads for me. And the other cool thing about this pad is the material. I asked him about the exact material that's made out of, and he didn't want to go into it for obvious reasons because it is a unique pad and he doesn't want someone copying him. But it is an uncoated cloth pad, in case you're wondering. As for what the material looks like, shout out to Hardware Unplugged. They mentioned that it looks kind of like the material like on a basketball jersey, and they're exactly right about that. It does have that same kind of feeling and appearance to it. So a lot of the textile materials that are in mouse pads actually come from clothes and things like canvas and camping equipment. So it can very well be that type of material. It also is very similar to a reflective vest, which, like I said, the white on this pad does have a reflective nature to it. The reflective nature of this pad gives it a very cool look, which fits the aesthetic of the design, which is kind of this, Mayan temple with ancient hieroglyphs in a space kind of dreamlike state. I especially like the little guy right down here. I don't know, it's just something haunting about it. Most mousepad designs are just cool or beautiful to look at, but this is actually kind of a thought-provoking type of mousepad design art, and I definitely want to see more of this type of mouse pads on the market. Before we get into the performance, let's go over the other aspects of the pad. Let's do a close-up of the surface. Like I said, it's really difficult to see on camera the reflective nature and just how beautiful this thing looks. It doesn't really translate well from pictures, but when you see this in person, you'll be impressed. And you can kind of see it almost has like these little scales on it, and you can kind of feel it too. It gives it a little bit of texture, but it's a pleasant texture. It feels nice on the skin, and it just has a little bit of a unique flavor to it. There's a close-up of the rubber base, which is, it's a nice rubber base, but nothing special. Just like most mouse pads, a textured rubber base. It definitely doesn't move at all on the desk, so that's great. Stitching wise, Padsmith has had pretty good stitching, as you can see. It's fairly tight, and it is raised above the pad a little bit, so you will feel it along the edges, but it's not uncomfortable. Here's a comparison to the First War stitching. I kind of like the first war stitching a little bit better, and it is also raised, but there, I don't have any complaints about the stitching. They definitely could improve in this area with future releases, but honestly, as long as it doesn't start fraying really bad or come undone, aesthetics wise, I don't usually care too much about it, but I know some people are very particular about the stitching, so I thought I'd just go over that briefly. As you can see, the stitching is very similar on both pads. I will say the first war is probably just a hair better. And on both pads, you can feel the stitching is raised above the pad, so you can definitely feel it when your finger or your mouse gets towards the edge of it. And some people hate that, and because they don't want to feel anything. And other people like it, so they just know where the edge of the pad is. So it's up to you. I'm a little indifferent to either one, but there you go for informational purposes. Anyways, with the basics out of the way, let's get into how this thing performs. And first off, this is definitely a control pad. It has very low initial friction. It feels very smooth on the glide. It's got good stopping power, as you can see. These are PTFE feet, and glass feels very nice on it too. I will say that glass does not move super fast on this pad, so if you're someone who has a difficult time controlling glass skates, and maybe you have a mouse that you bought and you haven't really been able to use it because it's just too fast, it works perfect on this pad. Feels very smooth with lots and lots of stopping power. I hate to use the term, but it definitely feels buttery smooth. It's not muddy at all. It just feels very controlled. But it also depends on the skates. I found that on this pad, the larger your skates are, the better it seems to feel. The other thing that sometimes I worry about with pads that have designs is whether or not the characteristics of the pad are consistent all over the pad, and I'm happy to report that it feels the same everywhere on the pad. X and Y movements feel the same. It's just a very solid, consistent pad. And as far as durability, I've been using this pad pretty much non-stop for the last 2 weeks, and it feels the same as when I took it out of the box. By the way, it does come rolled up in the box, but it lays flat very quickly. So there was just a hint of a roll on the sides for just maybe like 20 minutes, and then it's been flat ever since. So no worries on that front. Their other pad, the first war, was the same way. It went flat very fast. Now, being a control pad, this is definitely going to perform better in certain types of games, mainly tac shooters like CSGO and Valorant. But I also found that this pad works really well in Overwatch. It does an awesome job of tracking. Basically, when I get lock onto someone, I just don't lose them. I've got some mouse pads or mice that you just move, and then all of a sudden you lose tracking, and the next thing you know, they're behind you, and it's just real frustrating how your mouse jumps around. But with this mouse pad, I've been able to track really well, and I haven't had any issues of things jumping around or any sensors spin out. I've mostly been using the M42, which I'm about to review, and then the MZ1, also this deluxe M820. I always get asked quite a bit about this mouse because people don't recognize it, but it's basically an Orochi clone, just a little bit bigger. And the Fantech Aria that I should be getting any day now is also somewhat similar to this, but this is definitely a lower end version of that mouse. I'll be doing a review on this real soon too, but I always get asked, so I thought I'd mention it's a deluxe M820 DC. They call it the Hunter. And then just for glassgate testing, I did use my Pulsar X-Lite with the super glides on it. But for very fast-paced games like Apex Legends, I do think this pad still performs very well in those games. but I do think there are some other speed pads that would be my preference for that type of game. If you're someone who really enjoys tack shooters, but also wants a pad that's good at everything, then this is a good option for you. Because like I said, really excels with those controlled tack shooter type games, but it still does hold its own in all other types of games. There's very few pads that are just great at everything. There's definitely pads that are going to excel at those faster paced games, but then they won't be so great for the tack shooter type games. But if you are looking for a really good overall pad that's enjoyable to use, it's comfortable, then I can easily recommend the Temple of Dreams for sure. So this pad is not just a pretty thing to look at, it's also a high performing gaming pad. It's basically the best of both worlds. Now, as far as the humidity question that I always get asked, again, if you haven't watched any of my videos, I rarely ever sweat, and so even in intense gaming sessions, I don't really sweat. And my house is very climate controlled, even though I do live in a hot and sometimes humid environment. It just never really gets humid in here. So all I can ever really do is just test how it reacts with water. And as a side note, this material is very cool feeling on your skin. And for some pads, they heat up as you use it, which causes people to sweat profusely sometimes. If you're someone that has that issue, I don't think you're going to have a problem with this pad because it takes a long time to heat up. Anyways, we'll do a little water test. And as you can see, it's definitely a cloth pad, and it massively absorbed that water very quickly, which is pretty typical of a cloth pad. It's definitely not water resistant at all for sure. Some cloth pads have a very tight weave, so much so that it almost causes the pad to be somewhat water resistant. Now this is an extreme example because that's a lot of water, and you're not going to get that much right away unless you spill something on your pad, which definitely happens to people. But the nice thing is that is a lot of water, so this is kind of a worst case scenario. It does not really affect the glide as far as I can tell at all. It feels pretty much the same there as it does here where it's dry. And it's actually drying fairly quickly. Now, long-term wise, you never know with how that's going to affect that foam underneath the pad. So I don't have a long-term use of this pad, but I believe the foam is very similar to the first war pad, which I've used a lot, and I don't have any problems with that. But again, I don't really have humidity issues, so I can't for sure say that you're not going to have humidity issues with this pad. But as far as I can tell, I don't think so. But if you're someone that has really bad humidity issues and that's a huge concern for you, there's definitely other pads that you don't have to worry about that. Like I would definitely take a look at the Dornfinger soft Cordura pads, either the speed or the control pad. Both of those are amazing pads. They're still flying under the radar, and they're completely water resistant. They don't absorb at all, and they're both just amazing performing pads. If you haven't seen the review of those, I definitely recommend checking them out. And I do know that some other reviewers, like Rise Up Gaming, he's going to be reviewing those pads real soon. So definitely check out his review of that, because I think he's going to come to the same determination that I did, that they're amazing pads and people are kind of sleeping on them. And I'm definitely trying to get fresh reviews to be checking out those pads too. Just as this is a very unique pad that's not like anything else on the market, those soft Cordura pads are also extremely unique, that there's really nothing like it on the market currently. All right, so I know I'm going to get asked what this pad compares to. And like I said, material-wise, there's really nothing like it. There are some that are kind of similar, and I'm going to go over those briefly. So first off, this is the PureTrack MF2. Now it's also a smooth pad. It's definitely smoother than the Padsmith pad. There's really not a feeling of texture here, and This also has a kind of an interesting powdery feel to it. So they're both different, and I definitely feel more control on the Padsmith pad. I do like the MF2 for sure, and money wise, it's definitely a more affordable pad. But if I had to definitely choose between the two, I would choose the Padsmith pad. Just I think it's just slightly a little better. But don't get me wrong, I really love this pad also. And then of course we got the Saturn, and again, they don't feel exactly the same, but they do have similar characteristics. They're both excellent control pads, and I don't have the latest pro version of this pad, but hopefully Lethal Gaming Gear will be sending me one here soon. But I still love the Saturn a lot. This is an excellent pad, and it's super popular. And looking forward to checking out the pro version of it. But again, if I had to choose between the two, if you have the older Saturn, again I'm gonna still pick the Padsmith pad. But if you already have a Saturn, I don't know if it'd be worth upgrading to this, unless you're just interested in the design. And then the two other pads that are very similar are the Dornfinger Raw Pad. This is the version 1 and then the version 2. These are both two amazing control pads. This version 1 is, to me, most similar to the Radar. And on the version 2, they improved the stitching, but they also changed the surface too. The surface is a little bit faster than the Saturn, and I still love the original Raw Pad. I do know some people have had issues of this thing wearing down. It hasn't done that for me, but I just thought I'd throw it out there because I know Hardware Unplugged, Carlos wore an area on this pad, but that man is brutal on pads. I love him to death, but he is a pad killer. So I would definitely be interested in him trying the V2 to see if he could kill this one too. But so far, I haven't been able to kill either one. I'm hoping that was just a defective version 1. But the version 2 is definitely the hardest choice if I'm trying to, when I'm pitting these two together, which one I like more, because I love the version 2. And just as a heads up, there are some designs going to be coming out for the version 2 that are yet to be announced, and they're really cool looking. So be on the lookout for that. I'll definitely be posting that onto Twitter once he makes the designs available and official. I've checked them out, but I can't pass them on yet. Now the cool thing about the Dornfinger pads is they're 540 by 540, which are pretty big, as you can see. They do make a smaller version that's almost identical to the Padsmith pad. So if you don't like the 540 by 540, you can also get these in the smaller version. But again, it's really hard for me to choose just performance-wise. But when you add in the design, I'd probably still go with the Padsmith pad. But it's going to be even tougher choice once the Raw Pad version 2 with the design comes out. The stitching, I will say though, on the Raw Pad version 2 is really nice. It's definitely a step better than the Padsmith pad. But again, I don't have any complaints with it. It's decent stitching. Anyways, I just thought I'd kind of briefly bring these out and talk about them. But in the end, I still love this pad. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you did, please leave a like. That always helps. And if you haven't subscribed, yeah, you can hit the subscribe button, or you don't have to. It's no big deal. It doesn't matter to me one way or another. But anyways, I always appreciate the people that do subscribe and appreciate the people that keep coming back one way or another. I wouldn't do this if it wasn't for you guys. And I'm also very appreciative to the other reviewers out there who are very supportive, and all my friends on Twitter. If you're not following me on Twitter, I highly recommend it because I do most of my posting there. If you want to keep up on what's going on in the peripheral market and what's coming down the pipeline for the channel, definitely check out my Twitter. Also, feel free to DM me anytime. I always enjoy talking to people. And of course, please leave comments and questions down in the comment section of this video. I try to answer all questions. Sometimes it takes me a couple days to get to it just because I'm very busy with work and family and all that stuff. But eventually I will get to your question.